Jason Murphy, Against the Stream. Welcome, those of you here. Thanks for showing up. Those of you there, thanks for showing up. We discuss and practice Buddhism here. What is Buddhism anyway? The teachings of this guy that lived 2,560 years ago. And some would say the teaching was so relevant and so powerful that it still has a ripple effect, even, this far away from that time. So when I first heard about it, when I first kind of practiced a little bit of meditation, I was curious. I was like, okay, here's a guy that lived, 500 years before the birth of Christ, and I like the philosophy. I like what is being talked about. I hadn't really practiced much, a little bit, and that kind of started me on the path. So, not really sure why you're here, but I'm glad you're here. Like, what brought you here? Maybe it was your friend. Maybe it was your own kind of inquiry. Maybe you read a book. Maybe you were born a Buddhist, although that's not as any born Buddhists in the crowd. No, most of us are converts rebelling against our Catholic and Christian upbringing. I'll show them. It just made the most sense to me. It just makes the most sense. So we will do some practice, some meditation, and go from there. So let's go ahead. We'll just start finding a posture that's workable, that's sustainable, where you can kind of feel relaxed and alert. We got this new stand, so we don't have to have cushions piled up on each other, and it's very fancy. I think Jeff from NorCal sent it to us, so appreciate the Donna. Yes. Jeff C. All right. So, yeah, we're just going to practice what is often called insight meditation practice. Insight meaning what arises when we can collect the attention and calm the mind. And it's already there. We just got to get out of our own fucking way most of the time. So let's do that. Let's settle in. Maybe taking a few moments and just doing a mindful check-in. Just checking in, actually give the mind some attention. What's happening here? What's happening in the mind? What's happening in the body? Perhaps reviewing your day. Anything leftover thoughts, feelings, sensations that needs to be or wants to be addressed. Just giving some attention. And then the invitation is to just let those thoughts and feelings and sensations pass. Let them go. Aiming the attention more specifically on the experience of breathing. And the sensations that you can feel in the body related to the breath. And whenever some thought, some idea, some story comes back up into the mind, applying the intervention of not now. Whatever it is, thought, story, memory, just not now. And then bringing the attention back, re engaging with the experience of breathing in the body. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Become curious of the experience of the breath, tip of the nose, perhaps the coolness of the in breath, the warmth of the out breath, the subtle movements of the body, the rise and fall of the stomach. Sometimes it's helpful on the in breath to just silently whisper the word in or breathing in. And on the out breath, out or breathing out. Just as a way to help connect the attention with the experience of breathing. Of course, whenever the attention wanders off, gets caught or lost in a thought or a story, with a sense of friendliness or kindness with the mind, just saying, not now, not now, and then aiming the attention back, breathing in, breathing out, over and over again. This is the instruction. This is the attitude to take with our minds. Just not now. again and again. Recognizing the quality of the mind, if the attention wanders off, perhaps noting future or past, and then just saying not now in a gentle and kind way, applying the wise effort of present time experience. Breathing in, breathing out. Checking in with your mind. What's happening here? Has there been a shift? The body. What's present in the body? The heart. What's present here? Just turning the attention toward the quality of experience. Discerning for yourself in the next few moments. Loosening the grip of effort. Relaxing. Opening. Or perhaps tightening a bit, narrowing the focus, applying more effort. What's the wise response? So I just wanted to kind of open up for questions, reflections before I get into the topic for tonight. Please.
I'm just curious, like when you meditate, because obviously you've probably been doing it a really long time,
A little while.
are you able to clear your entire mind of like no thoughts? And if you can do that, like how long do you do that for? And like does it get like is it progressive or is it just kind of like person to person?
It's a great question. Thanks for asking it. The question was, I've been meditating for a while, so like, can I clear my mind? You mean like no thoughts?
Yeah. Either like focusing on breath or
Yeah. Or and if so, how long? And does it get easier and like longer over periods of time, sustainable, right? So there's kind of two answers to that. The first is that's not the point. We're not trying to actually stop thinking because the mind thinks. That's what it does. Just like the tongue salivates, the heart pumps blood, right? That's its function. The pancreas secretes insulin. That's its function. The mind thinks. That's its function. Now, that being said, because sometimes what happens is people come and they're like, I can't meditate because I can't stop my thoughts. Like it's supposed to be a blank slate in our minds, and we have that's a delusion. That's a misunderstanding, and I think it comes from the Zen folks, to be honest, because I remember hearing stuff like that when I was in the Zen practice. I don't mean to call them out, but if there's this like kind of it's supposed to be blank. No mind. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so that's one answer. The other answer is yes, that's possible. And it takes a long time, or it takes the right conditions. So what I'll say to you is that there is a group of teachings called the Jhanas, and the Jhanas are basically deep states of concentration. And it's called one-pointed attention. And so my best way to kind of, the way that I like envisioned it in my mind while it was happening is like, think of a fire hose pointed at the concrete, okay? And then the pressure pushes everything away except for the concrete itself, right? I don't know why, but that's the way I think about it. And in some ways, concentration practice, so breath practice is a concentration practice. Doing something like in, out, like I was kind of giving the instruction tonight, is a concentration practice. And applying effort over time allows there to be a settling. So one of the ways that it's kind of thought about is there's this teaching, it's known as the still forest pool. And, if you think about a pond where there's no wind, there's no animals, it's just nature, and it just is still. And there's no stirring that's happening. Now, a wind gust might come, but it will return back to stillness. Or an animal might come and drink from the pool, but it will return back to its original state of stillness. The rain might come, so on and so forth, right? A tree might fall, right? But eventually, it will return to its original stillness. And that the mind is the same way. It's possible for that to happen. But it's temporary. The kind of removal, like the fire hose analogy. When I've thought about like times that I've done longer practice, like 2 months at a silent monastery, meditation, eating once a day, doing nothing but meditating, not reading books, not watching TV, not playing on my cell phone, not anything besides sitting, walking, concentrating the mind, and eating a little bit and sleeping a little bit. Right. So that's kind of what I mean. Like, that's the longest I've done is 2 months. Some people do that for 6 months. Some people do that for a year. Some people, live in that state for regular periods of time, years. So during that time, what I've been able to kind of experience, and others have explained it to me in another way, like from their perspective, that there is a deepening of that sense of calm and stillness. And it's kind of like, instead of the freeway of thoughts, there's like one old truck on a country road every once in a while, And it's actually not even that disturbing. It's like, oh, there's a truck, That's actually kind of the way that I kind of can experience or kind of talk about that.
So did you start with in order to kind of focus in more, did you start with the fire hose analogy, or was it more like the pond?
Well, the pond, another great question. So was it the fire hose or was it the pond, right? The pond is, in the beginning, as we're entering into practice, this is, kind of some of the ways I like to think about it. Super busy, you know what I mean? There's like frogs, and there's, wind, and there's, all kinds of, and the sediment of the pond itself is muddy and murky and hard to see, right? And that's the kind of starting point, And so eventually, over time of doing the one practice, concentrating the practice over and over and over again. Breathing in, know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, know that I'm breathing out. Off the mind goes, oh, not now. And then bring the attention back. Breathing in, know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, know that I'm breathing out. Over periods of time. And that could be like an hour. That could be 45 minutes. That can be 6 months, that can be 10 years. It's different for different people to answer that other part of your question. Because we all have, the bare minimum requirements, right? If we don't suffer from something like schizophrenia or some severe and persistent mental illness or, developmental kind of issues, like childhood, birth defects, stuff like that, we all have the kind of similar kind of brain mind. It's possible to come to that stillness, that place. And the causes and conditions for each of us is slightly different, depending on what we're dealing with when we enter in. How old we are, what's happened, how kind of what I was talking about, maybe was that last week, about the wounds of the mind, how much, and also what my topic tonight is around kind of right or wise effort, and what's called Hari and Opata. Hari and Opata are called the great guardians of the world, and that is guilt and remorse, which we generally think guilt and remorse are not actually very fucking helpful. They can be kind of disturbing, and that's true. But from the Buddhist perspective, they're known as the great guardians of the world because they cause us to pause and reflect. So that's different than the concentrated jhana states that you're talking about. So there's two things happening here. One is we're trying to collect the attention and calm the mind, right? And that can happen to varying degrees. And, we're talking, if you want to, go on a meditation retreat and see what happens, like actually commit. And if not, that's fine too, right? That's fine too. But it is pretty but for what you're asking for, it takes effort. And this all takes effort, Just getting up in the morning sometimes takes effort, I mean, actually, literally, it does. We have to have an intention and then some action, some motivation, some movement. It takes effort. And it takes effort to continue this practice. And wise effort is kind of the next level of the teaching, right? Which I'll get to in a second. So hopefully that was helpful. It's a both and. Oh, the other part of that I wanted to say. So there's the concentration, there's the fire hose, right? And then there is the mindfulness. And mindfulness, what I like to think about everyday mindfulness. Being aware of what's happening as it's happening within me and around me. This we also zone out around every chance we get most of the time. And how can we not? We're, constantly inundated, It's even happened to me. I used to be a Luddite. I don't know if you know what a Luddite is, but a Luddite avoids technology, like rotary phone, or maybe even not even that, And I used to consider myself like a neo-Luddite. Now I'm super addicted to this thing, right? Because at one point, I think it was around the iPhone 3, I avoided it till I had like a flip razor phone until about the iPhone 3. And then I think someone gave me one for a present, and that was it. And they've evolved. And I think more and more is coming out now about how that big tech is totally trying to brainwash us and capture us all the time. That's their job. That's what they've been doing. Just like the advertisements did in the 50s. Find a way to tap into your reward system, which this is what likes are and hearts are and, comments are and, and then keep giving it to you. This is also what happens in Las Vegas when you're hitting whatever those things are called. Not a roulette wheel, but that does the same thing. A slot machine, right? We do the slot machine, right? And that gives you a little bit. You get 25 tokens. And then do it again. 10 tokens. Do it again, right? The rewards that we get from all of the inundation of distraction keep us going. Oh, I'll meditate later. I mean, I think really, I was thinking about this earlier, the kind of meditation that we teach here is absolutely fucking liberating. I have no doubt. But it doesn't always feel good. That's why this room is not full. Right? Maybe we should switch to sound healing practice and, have some kirtan or some different, types of bells and whistles, I think maybe more people would show up. Maybe we just have bad marketers. I don't know. But I mean, I feel like that's actually been a thing with Buddhism in the States, Buddhism in the West, and particularly this path, the Theravadan tradition, is that we're not saying feel good. And was it Ina? Me and Ina were talking before the class. Who ever told us that we're supposed to feel good all the time? Where did we get that delusion from? Where were we sold that bill of goods? Well, usually it came in an ad or a commercial or a grandparent. But this practice really points to really seeing through that delusion and finding contentment in what is, not just stopping our thoughts or getting rid of our thoughts. That might happen. There might be some settling, some peace, some ease, some joy, some what's called piti, some tranquility, serenity may arrive. But it's really just a passing experience. The contentment that Buddhism offers is about accepting things as they are and not being shaken by them. And giving up some kind of delusion that we're supposed to be happy all the time, that the next pleasurable experience will be the one that's going to last. Because has it ever in your life?
But if you're always happy in your life, it's also what you need.
Say it again. If you're always happy in your life, what?
If you're always happy in your life, it's also what we need.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
No.
Exactly.
So
As a matter of fact, and this is kind of where the Hari and Opata come from. So this idea of the great guardians of the world help us to see. And then last week I talked about the precepts, right? So living in a way that is, ethical, that has integrity, is going to help to subdue or reduce the amount of mental anguish that we experience, right? And then one of the aspects that comes up in our own practice is often, and this is what I talked about, maybe it was last week, a few weeks ago, regret and remorse, guilt. So guilt is useful only in the fact that it wakes you up. Oh, I feel really guilty. Okay, what did I do that made me feel guilty, and what can I do to either not do that again or to clean up what I need to, to correct my situation, to not have that happen again. This is the only useful aspect of guilt. To hold on to guilt for a decade is ridiculous from the Buddhist perspective, also from my perspective, and just causes suffering after suffering after suffering. Now, it's important to be able to, otherwise we're sociopaths, right? It's important to be able to feel the guilt when we do something, or feel the regret or the remorse, So that's the useful end to it, and then applying effort and applying the ethical integrity, applying mindfulness, applying concentration to what's happening here, which is a little bit I was pointing to during the meditation. Like in the beginning, I said, look at the quality of your mind, like what's happening there. Do a little mental check-in, and then I did that towards the end too. What can you notice about that? Right. And hopefully there was a shift. Maybe not. Maybe the shift was that it got worse, or the shift was that it got better. I don't know. But so anyway, that's some thoughts about Hari and Opata. I think I was opening for questions, but I think I just went right into a Dharma talk. So do you have any thoughts or reflections, questions in the Zoom or in the room? Please.
Like from my experience in doing meditation, I didn't grow up thinking the world owed me happiness just because of trauma or whatever. Right? So I had that wiring in my brain set for just really clinging on to suffering. I remember being 4 or 5 thinking about suffering, and so for me, it's almost the opposite. About like meditating is an opportunity to be friendly with my mind, and it's cultivating joy or happiness, being able to meditate. So it's not like it's really helped me that way amazingly, and it helps with physical pain and everything else too. So it's good.
Yeah,
I like it. It's juicy. I like that.
No, it's a great point, and it's the opposite extreme, right? So instead of this like the world owes me or I deserve to be happy, and then when I'm met with reality, it's actually the opposite of like I deserve suffering or I only know suffering in my life. That I have a very similar experience, and actually was a little bit addicted to suffering. I just was so used to it. It's like if you wake up every day and you get punched in the face, eventually it doesn't bother you that you're getting punched in the face, you know? And so when you start to see, oh, there's another way, and I don't have to, it's the same thing with like the guilt and the remorse or the regret holding on to. I don't have to hold on to this limiting mindset. And I agree with you. I think that meditation, once the pond settled, I was able to go, oh, wow, you can experience joy. You can experience kindness towards yourself, compassion. You don't have to constantly beat yourself up. You don't have to constantly be fighting the world or be expecting the world to fight you back.
Right.
And that was definitely, so I think it's a great point. And also one of the aspects that it may take some time. Yeah. Because what we're trying to do here is unravel our misconceptions, whether they're the extreme of like life is only suffering, right? Which is often a mistranslation of the Buddha's teaching, actually. Life is suffering. All life is suffering. That's not a reality. There is suffering in this world, and there is freedom from suffering in this world. And that can be, and it all happens in our minds and hearts, same. So, Rachel, you want to?
Hi. Yeah, I didn't catch all of I don't know their name. Whoever was just talking.
Just talking. It's Tracy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Tracy.
Tracy.
I wanted to say I experienced the same thing. I have a significant trauma history as well as just biological mental health things. And I actually talked with Noah about this in his Dharma talk. It was at the beginning of the month, his Refuge Recovery Dharma talk. And because I talked about how I have almost this attachment to suffering, where we talk constantly about, attachment and clinging being sources of suffering. But usually it's good things that you feel this attachment towards, or I think at least in like when most people are thinking about it, that's what we think about. And he talked about practicing appreciative joy. So the mudita, I guess.
Yeah.
And kind of cultivating that practice. And I wanted to tell Tracy too, he said that we would be talking about that in the next, like the first Thursday of next month. So she should check that out if that's something that she also has.
Okay.
So.
Appreciative joy, yeah, mudita.
Yeah.
It is a great practice to begin to reorient yourself to the goodness that is in the world and around us. And it's tempered with compassion also, right? Compassion for the suffering that we have experienced or that others experience. That's a good point. Thanks for bringing it up. And just like I kind of said earlier, both things are true. Concentration, not having, really not overemphasizing our thinking and allowing the process to kind of settle so we're not so busy. And what arises is compassion and joy. These are the kind of like what the still forest pool reflects when we can actually get to that place. Or when we really see Hari and Opata, remorse and regret and guilt, as the tools that they are, instead of the burden that we're, holding on to, or the suffering that we're kind of causing ourselves. So, yeah, it's all related, the juxtaposition And the is that it takes effort, but sometimes I don't know, like there's this whole thing about effort, and this is why the factor that we're talking about today, or the fold, is wise effort. So wise effort means enough that we're going to see some results and we're going to experience some of the positive aspects or the benefits of meditation, but not so much effort that it's another thing we're beating ourselves up about. And I definitely had that. I had this like Dharma soldier when there was a point, like I was saying, like I went on like 2-month silent meditation retreats, or it was like boot camp, or I went on this Goenka retreat, which is like a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you sit for an hour, and there's, you sit for an hour at a time, and then there's, there's not a lot of frills, it's just very bare bones, right? Monasteries in Asia where I slept on, concrete or hardwood floors, or, there's one place and they had a wooden pillow. It was like literally a block of wood with a little thing to put my neck in. And, and I had this like ardent, like, this is the way this isn't, life is suffering, and I have to like sit through all the pain, and it was helpful. And there was too much effort. There was too much efforting happening, and it was like I was missing the point. And this is where mudita comes into play. This is where appreciative joy and loving kindness and compassion and mindfulness, to see it. And that's why it's one of the folds, but not the only fold. Just like concentration isn't the only thing. And there's some schools of meditation that think getting to that no mind place is the goal. And the Buddha himself, at least as it's translated, said that's not the goal. Said, I've been there. He said, I've been there. And, it was really awesome, blissful, translucent. I felt like, he didn't say this, but this is my translation. I felt like I was on ecstasy, and then I came out of it. And my attitude and my relationship to the world was the same. Right? It's like you go on an ayahuasca journey. I'm not saying you should go on an ayahuasca journey, and I don't really think it's very healing, is actually my opinion. I think that people go and they have the experience, and then when they, come back, they still have all of the suffering, and now there might be some, turning toward it, seeing it. It's not, just like within meditation, you go on a meditation retreat, and it's not going to be joy all the time. Now there's a trajectory where there might be some things that get revealed, and we can heal from them. And that's what part of what Hari and Opata is. And that's, this kind of guilt or remorse as tools, as great guardians of the world. That's a recognition that we don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to live in a way that is causing harm to ourselves or others. And this is, tied into karma too, which is part of wise view. The karmic momentum of past actions that led to guilt and remorse in the first place, if we don't address it and let it go, then that karma just follows us. Like the cart gets pulled by the ox. So effort, wise effort, finding, I really urge you to sit 10 minutes a day, sit 20 minutes a day, come to 3 groups a week, commit to, I don't even care what it is, commit to some type of practice, inquiry practice, that is about checking in. Someone asked me recently, someone asked me, all this meditation, stuff that you do all the time, is that the only way? Is Buddhism the only way? No. But it's the one that makes the most sense to me. There are some other practices. There are some other aspects of Buddhism, that incorporate more, different kind of focuses. But I think it's useful to actually just delve in to the one path, the one that fits the best for you. And if you're here and you're checking this out, great. And that doesn't mean don't do yoga and don't, go to a Qigong class or go to a concert or go to some friggin' sound healing thing. That's fine. But are those just feel-good stuff, or is it actually a path to liberation? What is the actual path to liberation for you? For me, it's Buddhism. It's the teachings found by the Buddha. And I didn't come to that lightly, actually. Non-theistic, misunderstood, resentful at any kind of organized religion, doubtful of anyone sitting in the front of a room with a friggin' bell, But this practice, through applied effort and patience and kindness, just kept and keeps revealing layers of my heart that I didn't even think existed. That's the truth. Anyway, when I was young, there was a lot of calcification, because I thought that's what I needed to survive, because I learned that when I was young, I learned that because it was painful and I had to survive. And the practice, not only the mind, but also the heart, same thing. The emotional pain, the mental anguish, over time of kindness and patience and practice and seeing the difficulty and loving that part also, this has gotten easier. I don't know if you're like me, but, remembering the memories of actions of the top 10 or 20 worst things that I've ever done. These are the types of things that come up in people's minds when they go sit on meditation retreats. I know that's not a really good sales pitch for going on the next meditation retreat, but that's actually there whether you're giving it attention or not. That's the whole point. And that's the sediment that hasn't settled in the pond, or the windstorm, or the alligator that moves into the pond to eat the fish or whatever. I'm laughing at myself because I'm trying to come up with different examples of using the pond. So the precepts are helpful. I think it's important for us to recognize that we're not to blame, but we are responsible. The mind and our conditions and what's happening, even the distraction, we're not to blame. It's not your fault. Noah says this all the time. I love it. He says it's not your fault. I like to say you're not to blame. You don't need to blame yourself. Yet, we are responsible, able to respond, responsible, able to respond, response able. And that's what we can do now. That's what we can do in the moment when those, top 10 worst things come. Having some kindness and compassion, developing forgiveness for ourselves. It's all here. It's all here. Wise friends. So one of the other aspects of guilt and judgment, or guilt and regret, is judgment versus discernment. I've noticed this through my own practice, and I'm not perfect, but I judge a lot less than I used to. And one of the reasons why is because I stopped the self-judgment, the constant ridicule, for the most part. But, Harinopata, right, guilt and regret or remorse, it's still there when I act in a way that's out of my integrity, as it should be. That's the great guardian of the world that goes, oh yeah, oops, and take responsible. Not to blame, it's part of the mind. And the judgment, the layers and layers, part of the way to work with judgment is the same way that I gave the not now practice. The intervention is to recognize the judging mind when you're in the middle of a judgment. Self-judgment, judgment to others, and do nothing else. Just recognize, oh, judging. Oh, judging. And try not to be like, you're kind of judgy, Because the last thing we need to do is judge the judging mind, right? Because that's the suffering. That's the crazy making. Oh, see, I'll never get this. So it's just noting, oh, judging, oh, judgment. Same thing with anger. Trying to think what else and just like noticing the tendency of the mind. Oh, there's a lot of judgment in the mind today. Oh, this person or that person. We kind of can't help it. And if it goes back to, that's why we're not to blame. It goes back to when I talked about the temperaments a few weeks ago. The greed, hatred, and delusion. We're a greedy type. We're going to judge others for what they might have. It might be more envy, more jealousy, right? So that's where that appreciation or selfless joy comes into play. So there's a lot of components here, and it boils down to continually being aware of what's happening within us and around us, and try not to be an asshole. Oh, and try not to be an asshole to ourselves, that's what so much, almost any person that I've ever worked with, and I've been working with people in a therapeutic relationship for about 25 years. So I've worked with a lot of people in a lot of different phases of their life, and the judgment, the most judgmental people that were externally judgmental had the most were the most self-critical. And it was and it can be so hard. And so part of it is just to, what I think is being talked about here is applying the mindfulness to the quality of the mind. Oh, and then to do so in a very non-punitive way. Actually kind of make a little bit of a joke. It's so fun. It's like, oh yeah. Oh, that voice. Oh, the judging mind. And in Buddhism, there's the personification of all of these kind of qualities that the Buddha called Mara, which is basically our kind of negative psychological kind of aspects. Sometimes they call him the Lord of Death, or the like the King of Delusion. Keep us stuck, and our job is to vanquish Mara. So once the initial denial was broken, and the Buddha saw these qualities of his mind, because the Buddha did the same exact thing that we're talking about, the Buddha to be. And wise effort was to keep going with a sense of friendliness and kindness for our mind. So that's why you'll hear me say that like every meditation, because I used to have no kindness and no friendliness to my mind. I just judged it for being bad, and then I judged everyone else and the world, and because the world is unsafe and my mind is unsafe. Do you ever hear that kind of statement? My mind is like living in a bad neighborhood. Yeah. So this helps us to clean up the streets a little bit.
I'll just add to
Please.
that, which is like, my mind's unsafe place when you go to, and you don't want to go to it alone. So that's
Right.
what having the Sangha is.
Yes.
And like you can bring it to, and then bring it to the group and just like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was thinking that too. I just was like, I wonder if that fits. But yeah, we don't want to travel alone. I mean, that's why we need teachers and groups and community support. Phoenix.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
I had to let you know that I went on the retreat because you were the one that inspired me to go. I forgot what you said, but somebody was asking about like what happens on retreat, and your response just got me when you were just like something along the lines of like, "Come see." And that got me, and I was like, well, shit, I want to know, and I guess I'll just come see. So I did that, and it was fantastic, and I wanted to thank you for that. But I also do have a question.
Okay.
So I got into an argument with my neighbor. We kind of just, huh?
Car situation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I remember.
Yes. When I got back from the retreat, he immediately like hit my bumper with his car and blocked my car in to the driveway. And yeah, it just like escalated into this whole thing, and I had to get like non-emergency dispatch to get him to move his car and whatnot. But I realized afterwards that like I knew that he was gonna get pissed off when I parked there after the first time. The first time, whatever, his fault. The second time, I parked there knowing that it was gonna piss him off to teach him a lesson, and that was on me. Like I was being antagonistic.
There's some ill intent. Yeah.
Right. And with the conversation that I had with him afterwards, like I was being, snarky, and I wasn't actually trying to reconcile anything. So I realized all this afterwards, and I decided today that I would like try and apologize for my side of things. You know, leave him to do whatever with his side, but like do my part of it. And it's very, even talking about it like makes me shaky. So I know that I have like that I want to do it. And I was wondering if there's like advice that you have on, you know, making my body like calm the fuck down when I'm doing it, especially if he says anything like, you know, inflammatory.
I'm not the best at that, just so you know. I mean, actually, dealing with a moment of crisis, and what I would say is to be aware of your body and to, see if you can actually maybe sit for a few minutes before the conversation. Try to be aware of your belly and take breaths. Try if there's some antagonistic kind of gestures or words to be non-reactive, to be just to not let it affect you, and or to not show him that it's affecting you, and then to come and to keep breathing and to see. So I mean, this is a continued conflict. I have a neighbor, and I just bought a place, and first time I've ever bought a place, and I have a neighbor, and my neighbor smokes Swisher Sweets at night, and if I open my windows or my sliding glass door, the smoke just billows into my living room, right?
Yeah.
So I have a similar kind of, and I've had a few conversations, and it doesn't stop, and so I mean, I'm not. It's been escalating, but I've been trying to be mindful and wise about it, and I just say try to be mindful and wise about it, and to also that do no harm but take no shit. Also stand up for what you need to stand up for. Yeah, we're not into passivity here. We're into engagement.
True.
That's my thought. I don't know.
I like that, and I like the idea of meditating beforehand to kind of get me in that zone.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, just cleaning up my side of the street, but like you said, also saying like, I still feel very disrespected by this, like regardless of your intentions, just so you know, like that's the result of your actions is that I feel disrespected. So
I mean, see how that works. I don't know.
I'll figure it out.
It sounds a little like it could be a little volatile.
True. But thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right, we have time for anyone in the room? Okay, Rachel. Last comment, question.
Sorry, I'm a repeat offender tonight.
All right.
I was just thinking about something you said early on. Oh, and also really quickly, Phoenix, when I'm dealing with people like that, I try to tell them only what I think they need to hear and not necessarily everything that I feel. Right. And then meditate afterwards about feeling disrespected, because he probably knows that you feel disrespected because that was his intent. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents. But you talked about like where do we get this delusion that everybody is meant to be happy, or that we're meant to be happy as a baseline. And I had kind of a similar revelation a long time ago when I was in rehab. I've suffered with depression for almost my whole life. And I think that I always thought that the opposite of like feeling depressed was feeling happy. And then as I started to heal, I realized that the opposite of depression is really contentment, which is this idea of like acceptance. And I read a lot about like radical acceptance, that kind of concept. And that was really helpful to me. And I did really well for a long time when I was coming to these classes regularly. I feel like every time I come, it's like the topics are always relevant to my life, and I don't know if that's because like some synchronicity in the universe, or if it's simply because like all of the topics that we talk about are so relevant to like living. um but I was talking to my therapist like last week about how it gets exhausting. It feels like I get frustrated with the fact that it feels like I have to put so much effort into my contentment, because I, I was coming to these meetings for months, like very religiously. I was meditating religiously. I was doing yoga. I was like making time for my self-care practices. And then I kind of slowly fell out of it for maybe a month and a half. And I ended up actually getting to the point where I had a slip and I used. Um, and then when I came back, it was like I had this moment of like resentment toward all the happy people that like don't have to do all of these things to like be okay. And I think like, everybody has to put in some sort of effort, and maybe some people have to put in more or not, I guess. But I wanted to say, like, for the group, that I think what the biggest thing is having this like sangha, like this group of people that is putting in effort to reach some sort of contentment, and it makes me feel like not alone. And I think that was like really what makes the difference. So thank you. That was a long-winded way of saying thank you to everybody.
Well, glad you're back around and here and continuing. And to just kind of wrap things up, yeah, all, wise effort, committing to sustained practice, following, following the precepts, to trying to wake up, and to not have meditation be another thing that we beat ourselves up about. And put in the effort that you can when you can, but commit. Thank you for your time and attention, those of you in the room and on the Zoom. Just know that we are sustained by the donation of those who attend, and I'm pretty sure Mike put in the links there, and then there's the bowl here and the Venmo. If you want, talk a little bit more about that. So we're just going to take in all the goodness of our practice, taking in the effort, the attention, the showing up. This is creating a positive intention in the world, as well as our own hearts and minds. So taking in the good of our own effort, and then dedicating this goodness to the freedom from suffering. May all beings be free.